All right. So the first thing I wanted to do, as I always do in these vocal sessions, is to each go around and one at a time, I want you to share something that you love about your voice or something that you love about singing, but something that you love. This is a chance to find something positive and not to think about what you want to be, but what today can you love about your voice? So I'm just going to go around the screen and call you out. Jeff, you're up first.
Oh, sure. Well, for those that don't know, I'm up in Bloomington, Minnesota, up in the Northlands or the flyover country, as some of the guys in the US say. What I like about my voice, when it hits, it's awesome. When it doesn't, it's not so good. But I love my power song. There's a couple of power songs. I just found out too that I do Can't Help Falling in Love really well. And it just hits my voice, and I love, 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 love when I do that. So anything, I'm finding out that my power keys are like E, D, and C. And so now it's just finding ways of writing like I mentioned in the writing in the group for the event thing, it's finding ways of writing for that voice, finding ways of hitting where I can find my natural voice instead of coming up too high or coming in too low. But that's overall, I just don't sing too much. That's the other problem I have. I need to be singing more.
Sure. Cool. Thank you. That's great. Next up, Jim.
You may have to unmute yourself, sir.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
There should be some speaker settings next to the mute. It should tell you which microphone is selected. No, I'll give you a bit to have a look, but there's a little arrow next to the mute, and then there's some audio settings, and that should help you find the speaker. Or feel free to throw your answers into the chat if you get stuck. But it'd be great to hear your voice. So I'll throw it over to Rick and see if you can get your speaker working.
All right. So I'm not sure if there's anything I particularly love about my voice. Although I enjoy singing. I enjoy the sort of the feel I get when I'm singing. So there's that. I guess, I do love the fact that I can reach the low A and level tears apart. So there's something.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's awesome. Kirsty.
I'm going to say actually that what I like about my voice at the minute, and I think this is something that we take for granted, and sometimes when you listen to other people who aren't really into their music, you think, actually, you shouldn't take that for granted, is that I can carry a tune. I can generally sing in tune most of the time without too many bum notes, and that is something that a lot of people would love to be able to do. And I think I and many of us don't really think anything of it.
Very true. Thank you. Ryan.
Yeah, so something I love about my voice. I'm able to really express an emotional and a soulful side of me that doesn't come out in regular conversation. there's a way of expressing myself there that's just not present in your standard communication. You know, a lot of people comment that my voice sounds soulful, but to me, it's like therapy songs. It's like you're getting all these emotions, whether they're joys or frustrations or negative or positive things, but you're getting it out there and you're processing it through the song.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you. Jonathan.
I feel like the same, I think, as Ryan and Rick. It's more about the emotions that it evokes in myself and in others, and hearing people sing, the emotions it evokes. Yeah, I love that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Jim, do you want to give us another go? Oh no, we still can't hear you. I don't know what it could be. Are there any Zoom experts in here who know about sound?
He may need to go into like the three dots, like the settings side, and enable original sound, because that apparently can cause quite a bit of problems sometimes if you haven't enabled it. I just see him flicking on and off mute in the window.
Yeah, we still can't hear you. How strange. But for now, if you want to throw your answer into the chat, yeah, feel free to do that, and we'll carry on. And if you do manage to get it working, it'd be great to hear from you. All right. So today, I wanted to talk with this EP challenge having already started. I wanted to talk about recording vocals. How many people are comfortable recording vocals? All right. Cool. So the first thing that we always do in our vocal sessions, which I love doing, is our warm-ups. And so we're going to do it. We're still going to do that because most of this will just be chatting around different ways that we can approach recording vocals. But it is so important to warm up, right? It's so important to warm up every single time. And so the first thing we're going to do, which we always do, is just to relax. Okay, we've just heard from Jim. So I'm a reluctant singer, just learning really. Okay, well, welcome. Every kind of singer is welcome here. And also just for the new faces, let me just say that every single one of us has a voice that is worthy to be heard. So these vocal lessons are not about becoming a Beyonce or someone else. It's actually just about opening up your own voice, to finding your own sound, because everyone's got their own sound that is really magic. So we're going to start in a place of relaxation, because this is really important that we have no tension in our body. So if you close your eyes and just see if you can settle into your seat a little bit, and just start slowing down your breathing. And feel your feet heavy on the floor. And then see if at the same time that you feel that heaviness, you can feel a little lightness through your head. So there's these opposing forces, just very gently. And then we're going to do a little bit of box breathing. So I'm going to count you in for 4. We're going to hold for 4. And then we're going to release for 4. We'll do this together. So ready to breathe in. Hold. and release. Breathe in. Hold. Release. In. Hold. Release. In. Hold. Release. This is the last one, make this one count. In. Hold. And release. Just continue to breathe. And as you breathe, I want you to imagine that you're recording your voice and it's effortless and it's exactly how you want it to be. Your voice is exactly how you want it to be. It translates exactly how you want it to. You capture it perfectly. So I just want you to imagine, to really see if you can embody this feeling just for the next few moments. See if you can capture what that feels like. And then when you're ready, take one last big deep breath. Let everything out and then open your eyes. Hello, Ross.
Hi.
Welcome.
Sorry, I'm late. I had some unexpected work on the farm that just came up and I had to look after it.
No,
I
it's totally
apologize.
fine. Welcome, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to
We've
be
just we've just had a little moment of breathing and meditation and imagining what it feels like to record our voices and for it to feel really good. How does everyone feel? Was it easy to capture that feeling? All right, there's like a few reluctant movements in the head. It might feel kind of weird to do that on camera. I can totally understand that. But what I would encourage you to do is, especially every day of this EP challenge, see if you can try that every day, just for a few minutes, because it will become clearer what the good feels like. And what you might start to notice, what I hope you start to notice, is actually how it feels in your body physically. So where do you not feel tension, or where do you feel power? You know, it's really, really useful to take note of these things, because our bodies are incredible. We're able to imagine something and capture that, how that actually feels in our body, and that will help us when we sing. So the first thing I would encourage you to do with recording is to do that. And then any time that you struggle with recording your vocals, anytime it gets a little bit, irritating or just doesn't feel quite right, see if you can take yourself back into that moment to find that a little bit of ease, to let go of any tension. And then the other thing that you can do, we'll do a few warm-ups as well, but the other thing you can do, which is really great to do, is just to literally shake out your body, shake your arms, shake your head, just like, call it the jellyfish. Give yourself a little jellyfish moment and feel completely silly and go crazy, because it will just really loosen everything up. Right, exactly. Loosen up the neck, get everything moving. So that's really important. That's really, really important that our bodies are at ease. Because anytime there is tension in our body, then we're starting to push out vocals. And that's when, and not only can we do harm, but that's when we're kind of fighting against ourselves. And singing should be just as easy as talking, just that easy. So first things first, let's get rid of the tension. Second thing, you can do a few warm-ups. So we'll do just 2 today that I think are really helpful. And the first one is we're going to do some lip trills, which feel really silly, but bear with me, just jump right in. We're all going to feel silly together and it's going to be great. So I just want you to do your first lip trill. I think we did it this way last time, just on no particular note, but just what you can do is put your fingers on your cheeks, lift them up a little bit, and then just throw it away. It really does help to lift up the cheeks too. Cool. So we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to do it on a little bit of a slide, just to kind of challenge ourselves a little bit. So again, thinking of that relaxation, and then any note you like, give it a go. And I want you all to try it one more time and see if you can keep the shoulders down, see if you can keep nothing happening up top. There should be no tension or feeling. If you need any support, make that come from your stomach, make that come from your gut. How's everyone feel about that? Good? All right, great. Okay, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it on an R. So we're going to go from, try and go from your lowest note to your highest note. And in fact, see if you can think beyond your highest note. Just a little bit of a challenge for you. So we're going to do it on an R, and just take your time really slowly. See if you can go much slower than I did, but see if you can give that a go. How was that for everyone? Did it feel easy? All right. There's kind of like not too much going on right now. Let's try that one more time. And when you do the R, again, nothing up top, only feel it in your stomach. And see if you can just pull the sound backwards, not pushing out, but see if you can feel that motion. All right, we're going to do it one more time. And we're going to feel silly for a second. We're going to use this jellyfish thing. And what I want you to do, so like, you're going to go like this. You're going to go back and forward, and you're going to, and you're going to do the ah at the same time. And it's going to feel ridiculous, but this will really loosen up the body. So it'll be ah. See if that helps. Oh my goodness, we're doing this every time. It's so great. Did that help anyone? Yeah, it's interesting, right? Okay, cool. All right. So that's our warm-up. There are a ton of other warm-ups you can do. What I would really advise is that look back through the previous ones of these videos if you like, or have a look on YouTube and find ones that you really connect to. And by that I mean, if you ever feel tension or if it feels like something's just not right, don't do it. Only do the ones that feel really good. So yeah, warming up, really important. So we're going to talk about different ways that we can approach recording your vocals. If you do have any questions, please just, feel free to sit off mute for the rest of it. We're not going to do any more singing today. So feel free to yell out if you have a question, throw it in the chat, whatever you like. But I thought let's just start from the very beginning. So there are obviously a bunch of different ways you can record your voice. You might just be using a phone, in which case there are a few less things that you can kind of control, or you might be using a microphone, whatever your setup. However, there are things you can do. There are things that you can kind of play with. And I think the fun thing about recording your voice is that you can just play a lot. This is not a performance. This is not something where we have to project to an audience or, we create our own vibe in the room, right? So there's a lot to play with. So the very first thing, how many people are using microphones to record vocals? Okay, cool. So let's start there. So with your microphone, probably can't see, there's one in the background. There are a few things that can really help actually just to capture your voice. So one of the things you really want to do is try and capture the quality of your voice and the clarity of your voice as best as you possibly can, right? Because then you've got the best raw data to work with. So there are a couple of things that you can do. It's great if you've got a shield that goes around your mic, or you've got any kind of room treatment, which just basically helps. It helps with the room sound, right? It helps to stop, because every room will have a different, right, exactly what Rick's got. I think literally, guys, I've just moved from London this year and my stuff has literally just come in the house. My shield is out there. I cannot wait. Anyway, so yeah, so a shield. Now, if you don't have a shield, they're kind of like, they might be a few $100s or something for a good one, a couple $100s for a good one. If you don't have one, totally fine. You can use a couple of pillows. This is a great little hack that I learned in isolation. You can use a couple of pillows and you can put them either side of your microphone as you sing. It's kind of a bit of a nuisance because you've got to hold them there, or maybe you can like jimmy something up to, but pillows work really well to reflect sound. So that's like that's something that you can play with. So what I would do is try recording without, try recording with, and see if you can hear the difference. So that's just like a little basic kind of capturing, right?
Yeah. I actually did some test recordings with using that, not this past weekend, but the one before, and I actually couldn't hear a difference in this room.
Right. So you
Which
might
kind
have
of surprised me, actually.
that.
But,
A few other things that you can do in your actual room if you do get a bit of bounce back or a sound that you don't like, is you can dampen your room by adding you can add any soft furnishings. So you can add blankets or pillows, or sometimes I just throw a duvet on the floor, and that helps a lot. And so it's a tiny thing, and really at the end of the day for this EP challenge, it's not a major thing. But what it can do is just, if it sounds a little metallic, often it might sound a little metallic, then you can just dampen it with a few soft furnishings, and that might just slightly soften the sound of the room. So that's just kind of a basic thing that you can play with if you have the space and time to do that. Apart from that, if you use headphones when you record, I will often go like this when I'm recording vocals. And that's because what can often happen, I don't know if you guys find this, but see what happens when you sing with headphones on and sound playing through, or you sing with them off. And often what will happen, and especially with a mic in front of you, often what will happen is people will sing very differently to when they're performing. There'll be a lot of holding back because the sound is so close and so loud. So by pulling an ear back, you're kind of giving your ear a bit of space to actually hear your voice rather than through the cans. It's a little bit of something to play with to see what feels better, but sometimes it can stop you holding back by just giving yourself a bit of space. But that's definitely something to notice. Notice if you hold back. I remember my first time in a studio, and I was very, very, very reluctant at the microphone. It's a very different feeling. So if you do feel like it's different at the microphone, your voice isn't quite what you think it should be, that's completely normal. It's totally fine. But yeah, see if taking an ear off helps. See if closing your eyes and going back into that moment where it feels good, where you know what it feels good to record, helps. Yeah, that's a little basic thing. So then you've got your mic in front of you, and now's when you get to kind of play around a bit and have a bit of fun. Because there are sort of some rules, but whatever, I don't really subscribe to rules. I'm not really that kind of person. So you can have the microphone as close to you or as far away from you as you like. And what I would encourage you to do is play with that. See what feels good. If you have a song that you're talking about emotions with vocals, if you have a song that's really deeply personal and really emotional, and you want to convey that, maybe you have it close and you make it sound really intimate. If you have something where maybe your emotions are more angry or more, it's more of protest or resistance or something big, maybe you pull the mic away and maybe you sing big into the mic, like you're shouting to that person over there. So play with the mic, and almost what's really useful is to think of the microphone as being the person that you are in conversation with. Who is it that you're singing to? So you can ask that question, who am I singing to and what am I trying to say? And then make that microphone a real person, and that will inform how you interact with it. Does that make sense? Okay, cool.
It does. It seems like an extension of what we did a couple of sessions ago when we were trying to maintain the emotion when we said something.
Yes.
Into when we were singing. I think it's the same sort of principle, and that has really worked for me.
Yeah, beautiful. I would say too that again, if you get stuck, that's a really great technique that you can go back to. So for anyone that wasn't in that session, what we did is we spoke the lyrics and spoke them like they're in a conversation. And that's actually kind of a difficult thing to do. Might take a few practices, but to say them like they're actually real, like you're really, really saying them to someone, say them and then sing them like that. Because actually they might come out different to how you're expecting, you know. Maybe there are moments where the emotion is big, maybe it is really angry, but it still needs to be intimate because it's a quiet anger, you know, or it's an internal anger that you haven't actually let out yet. So, so speaking the lyrics is really, really, really useful. So that's just kind of your basic interaction with your microphone, and then and kind of listening to yourself as you sing. I'm thinking there might be a few other things in here though. Yeah. Thinking about the room that you're in, it could be helpful to change the room. So sometimes I've been in studios that have felt very clinical, might be the word. So see what makes you feel comfortable. If you feel comfortable lying on the floor and singing, if that's the right thing for the song and that's the right thing for the emotion, if you lead by emotion too, that's always the right choice. Then do that. If you need a room that's dark and maybe you have a little lamp or a candle, or maybe there are certain smells that you want in the room, think about that. Think about what is going to make you feel the most connected to the song. It might be the things that make you feel most connected to yourself. So for me, I've got, I managed to steal off my brother a few coloured lights. So I've got some coloured lights in the ceiling and I'll like change them to change the mood of the room. And it's just a little simple thing that can make me feel, all right, I'm here, I'm present. That's a fun thing to play with. Yeah, that's the space. Then I want to talk about character. So what I mean about recording being super fun is we get to play with sound, right? Now usually you'll always have some kind of lead vocal, right? Sometimes you might have backing vocals too, and that's where you really get to kind of go crazy. Don't be afraid to make your voice weird for backing vocals, right? Don't be afraid to play around. There are some backing vocals that I think of kind of like a girl gang, or like a kind of really obnoxious character, or maybe really whiny, maybe really soft and ethereal. And so see what does the song, think about what the song needs and play with your voice and try different things. What happens if I make it really nasal? What happens if I make it really like sound sharp? What happens if I make it sound a little off? That's a really fun one to play with, because you get to mix these voices in, right? So you don't have to have these things loud. They don't have to, it might sound horrible, but when you mix it all together, you might get something really, really interesting. So don't be afraid to make your voice sound ugly. Sometimes, honestly, that is where the magic is, because you're pulling all of these elements together. As I've said many, many times, a friend said to me years ago, it's never about how beautiful the voice, it's about whether you believe it is telling the truth. So see how your voice can tell the truth. Sometimes that means you want to feel a little obnoxious, and maybe that means your whole body needs to feel that too, right? Maybe you go back into yourself and know what it feels like. Oh, how does it feel to feel like really angry and like, and like make those sounds, make the sounds, and use that to inform your singing, because that will be really powerful, because then the people that listen to it later will go, oh yeah, I believe you, right? I know that feeling. Yeah. So don't be afraid to play. Don't be afraid to go wild, and don't be afraid to get it really, really wrong. I would also say the same thing about the lead vocals. So often what I'll do, and I imagine what so many of us do, is I try to do really perfect vocals for lead. I'll just really try, I'll like really practice it technically, and then I'm like, yeah, this is how I'm going to sing it. But actually the translation of it is a little flat maybe, because it is just so technical and it's really easy to forget about the emotional side. So what I'll always do with every single song, I'll do one take where I just go nuts, where you just let it out, close your eyes, let your body do what it needs to do to support you, because sometimes moving helps a lot. Sometimes you need a jellyfish. And just do a really big take. And maybe you don't use all of it. Maybe you use none of it. But maybe there are parts in there that are just magic, you know? So do that with every song. Do one crazy big take. That's much easier when you're on your own. If you have other people in your room, see what you need to feel comfortable to do that. See if you can allow yourself to do it. Any questions so far? Cool.
No, I think I do the kind of a jellyfish. I notice I don't even consciously do this, but when I'm recording my voice, my arms go everywhere. Not like sort of Shirley Bassey style. They're just all over the place. Just giving it some of that.
Kermit the Frog style.
Sorry?
Kermit the Frog style.
Exactly, yeah. And then during the instrumental break, I do a Snoopy dance as well.
Jeez.
Seriously, moving the body is such a big part of it. I think when I was younger, I used to, being a very conservative Kiwi, I would watch, singers performing on TV or whatever and think, oh, they don't need to do all of this. That's just, look at me. But actually, all of these things are really important. They're all cues. They're all physical cues for your voice to follow. So, don't be afraid to do whatever. Your body will know what to do. This is the other thing that's true, right? Your body knows what you need. So listen to it. It will tell you. You don't need to fight against it.
Maybe you were going to go on to this, but technique, especially with like plosives and things like that.
Yes.
One of my songs has a very big P right in the chorus. And it's like getting that without having all this sort of massive transient is a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. So for big explosive moments, I'm always thinking about, and in fact I've tried to make this a habitual thing, just a natural thing, where I'm always thinking about pulling the sound backwards, even though that doesn't make sense, right? Because it doesn't make sense. But by doing that, you're not pushing air out. And it's that air sound that you'll capture in the microphone, right? So think about pulling it backwards. It might be useful to think about yelling to someone behind you. You know, when we practice in our warm-ups and the other sessions, saying the word, hey, we're going, hey, I'm thinking of someone behind me, hey. If I say, hey, I'm pushing out a lot of air and that gets captured. So you can use the word hey as a good practice to get you feeling that. Where do you feel it? Hey, and then you can change it to the word that you're using. the other thing that you could use for those big, powerful, like bang moments is to, if you just cough, like just like gently cough, you can feel where your muscles contract in your core. That's the movement you want. You can use that to support you. And by doing that and pulling it backwards, it means that you have all of the support that you need in your body. You don't need to take any extra air in. It means that you're not creating any tension in your upper body. Is that useful?
Yeah. Try it
Cool.
out this weekend. Thanks.
Yeah. Right. It's just play, right? Just play around with it.
Hey, Cal,
Yes.
when I'm recording, I like to cradle the microphone with the palm of my hands.
Mhm.
Does that seem reasonable? I just, it's a natural inclination for me to be intimate with the microphone.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great question, actually. Yes, I would. I mean, as long as it doesn't create any sound, as long as it doesn't create any interference in the sound, then there's nothing wrong with it at all. I've done the same thing. I would also say that if you have the equipment or availability of equipment, don't be afraid to try different microphones for different things. You know, it might be that. So I've got an Aston Spirit, and that's got really good clarity. Like it's very, very, very unforgiving. It's great for lead vocals. But maybe there's a Shure SM7B, and that's a lot softer and it's a lot more forgiving. Maybe that's really good for backing vocals. You know, like, so have a play around with what works. See what it sounds like. So do a little recording, listen back. How does that sound? I would say that about microphones. So listening back. How many of you hate listening back? Yeah. It's kind of it can be quite intimidating to listen back to your own voice. But keep doing it. So do it with every take. It's something that you just actually cannot avoid. And something that has really been useful for me, which I highly recommend, is when you do listen back, have a notepad ready and listen back for the moments that you love. Listen back for the moments that you love, the things that you're like, oh, that little, it might be one word, that word was incredible, I want to keep that. It's really, really easy to listen back to our voices and go, oh, no, not that bit, not that bit. See what happens when you flip it and listen for what you love. That is far more powerful. It is far more useful for you to do that. You'll find moments of magic. And so practice that, because then it becomes much easier. It becomes much easier to listen to your voice, right? Because then when you're listening back, you're going, oh yeah, that's cool. I like that. I'll re-record this bit so that it supports this next bit that I really love. Does that make sense? Cool.
Yeah, it still seems like when you're doing lead vocal, at least for me, I know I go through about 15 takes before anything starts to resemble. And those are the songs that I've done forever. But I also know where I have to punch. And the key thing is to just make sure that it's the same all the way through. So.
Right.
Something I'm discovering, and some of you will know, I'm kind of in the process of migrating across from using GarageBand to using Logic, and I'm absolutely loving having take folders in Logic because it is so easy to record many, many, many takes, particularly with vocals, and singing them in different ways. And as you say, Cal, having one where you go absolutely all out and then comping them together into an overall track with like the greatest hits of every take you've done. That's an absolute game changer for me. Just been able to do that the last month when you can't really do that in GarageBand, not easily, you know. So yeah, so I'm probably doing more vocal takes than I've ever done before because I have that ability. Whereas previously I would have just done one take. Thought, yeah, it's all right. That'll do.
Yeah,
How many
that's a really,
takes-
really good point.
Yeah, how many takes are people doing? I mean, I guess I have expectations of myself, and I figure, oh, if I can't nail this in like, half a dozen takes, then what am I thinking?
Oh,
I'm
right.
curious to know, how many takes do
Well,
people
I
do
would say
on
for me,
these
because
things?
I'm just dipping my toe back into the water before we get to the experts. I'm maybe doing probably, as you say, half a dozen, and then I'm going through that and trying to get a good composite take from across all of them. There may be a handful of areas where I'm still not happy, and I'll then bounce those particular sections of the song, those lines, those two lines, rather than doing a full take of the rest of the song. But I'm very much still learning this.
I'm decidedly old school. If I think the take is trash, I redo everything. I'm going back to the tape days where you're running on tape and you can't splice things together. Now, that being said, I do some punch ins once I get a main track that I like, and I know that there's parts that I flubbed, but I don't do the layers, and I probably should, and it might be a little bit easier just to run a couple, just to see how it goes. But I'm just that kind of I suppose I'm either old school or a dinosauric old school, or I just like to record the one take and make sure that the take is solid and then go from there.
Sometimes I feel like it's actually faster to re-record than it is to comp everything together.
Yeah.
You can spend a lot of time comping, and
Yeah.
so it's a trade-off, I guess.
Right. And there's no wrong choice, right? It's a choice. And you have complete creative control.
Mm-hmm.
So it is completely your choice, which also means that there is no right answer for how many takes you should do. It's what feels right to you. And actually, if you're going into it going, I need to get it within these, it's never going to happen. You've already lost.
And it's not just voice that happens either. I mean,
Exactly.
I can go in and I'm thinking I've got a bass part down, in 20 takes later, it finally came together, and that's with one splice.
Right.
So just, you got the time, you're not spending money on a studio. Take the time to do it. Take the time to, and I don't know how many people anymore just rehearse it. They figure they can take over and use auto tune or Melodyne or whatever. And that's okay too. But
Yeah.
I'm one of those where I know if I don't hit a note right, I'm not going to Melodyne it. I'm going to go back and sing it right. So
yeah,
there again, that's the dinosauric old school.
Weirdly, I do also find rehearsing helps.
Mm-hmm.
Recording. I don't know why it would. I mean, and yet.
It can also be good to record your rehearsing, because you're wearing headphones, because you have a microphone in front, because it's really easy to rehearse and then come to this stuff and then go and you take away something.
Sometimes
I have taken away one can. Dave Sutherland actually pointed that out to me. God, was that a year ago already? Several months ago, probably. No, could have been one of the last EP challenges, I think, because I was having trouble with the vocal, and he said, "Yeah, if you want to see where you're sitting, listen to it, but also see where your voice is and how your voice is coming through." So
I think it's important to record those first takes. Sometimes they turn out to be the best.
Yes.
they are.
Sometimes you keep working on it, and there doesn't seem to be an improvement. And
Yes.
it depends on the melody too. Some melodies, some keys are easier to sing in songs than others. Some you can almost do in one take, but not very many.
One of my little tricks to myself because I get a little bit hung up with, okay, this is the take. So one of my little tricks is I go into my DAW and I call it guide vocals. And by doing that, I am like, oh yeah, I can throw this away, right? This doesn't mean anything. I do the same thing with writing lyrics. I buy the ugliest notebooks because then the writing doesn't need to be pretty. I can scribble and it doesn't, you know what I mean? So actually allowing yourself that space to kind of trick yourself a little bit to go, you know what, this doesn't really matter. Sometimes that's really useful.
Yeah, it's like reduce the stakes, just make everything low stakes, because really it all is.
Right. Yeah, we've gone over a lot. We haven't actually talked about what to do with the recordings. Does anyone, so I mean, I could just talk about it, but does anyone have any questions with what to do with raw recording, knowing that I am still learning myself?
I don't do a whole lot with it. I should do a little bit more with the EQ and maybe just a touch of compression to even things out. I do go in either with a small room reverb. I don't try to go just to give it a little bit of space. Haven't tried with any kind of slapback echo or anything like that. But that's kind of my process. I've just found that with just a touch of reverb, I'm doing fine, but I may just try to play around a little bit with the EQ and the compression. Not a whole lot of compression. Yeah. Maybe a 2-to-1 or something like that with a faster release. And then for me, knocking out some of the lows and some of the highs and seeing where we go from there, just doing really, really little subtractive EQ moves.
Some advice I got once, which I thought was brilliant. Thank you, Jeff. That's was especially if you're kind of new to playing around with recordings, is to go to the extreme, right? To go to the extreme first. What happens if I push this dial all the way up? What happens if I pull it all the way down? Stretch things as far and see if you notice what they do. And then just play with it a little bit, because you do want to do as little as possible, right? And right, again, it depends on what you want your product to be. Do you want it to sound raw? Sure, do as little as possible. Do you want it to sound like the complete opposite? Do you want it to sound super reverby? Do you want it to sound like you're in a cathedral? And so that's also where you can have fun. So I talk about like character and playing around with your voice and going a little wild. You can do the same thing with the way that you play with your actual recordings. So there might be moments where you're like, oh, putting a really big reverb on these harmonies in the background will just like make it feel really expansive. Or you can use compression to make it feel like it's coming in a little tighter. And you know, like maybe it would sound really cool if there's like maybe I use Melodyne and maybe I actually tune down some of these backing vocals, and maybe that makes it sound a little weird, a little spooky, and that's really cool. Or maybe you know, there are some echoes that you can put on, or effects that you can put over your voice to make it sound completely different. And maybe that's just in moments. And one piece of advice that has been so useful for me, that I'm still trying to implement, is to find moments where you're like, what would be the least expected thing right here? Because sometimes what that does is that creates a contrast to the rest of what's going on, and it emphasizes. So if you want something to sound really, really soft and airy, and then you have something that's kind of biting in the back, it kind of emphasizes, it kind of contrasts and makes it feel a little even bigger, you know, makes it sound even softer up top. So what I would say is, don't be afraid to kind of like turn those dials right up and right down, and just to see what kind of weird effects, you know, like it's really easy to go and do a whole lot of study and figure out what all of these things do and how to do it right. but play, because you might find something really, really interesting, and you might find something specifically interesting with your voice, you know? And maybe it's just in little moments. Maybe it emphasizes the obnoxious girl gang backing vocals, or, you know, play and see what happens.
Something I was going to mention that I noticed this at one point when I was playing around with some vocal takes I'd done. Double tracking, basically. So just like using two takes, and it doesn't necessarily have to be obvious, but even doing it subtly can kind of help to, it thickens things up, and it can help to sort of iron out some of the inconsistencies.
Yes.
I agree.
Oh yeah, that's a way to do that with guitar parts all the time. I've thought about doing it vocal wise, and I think I've done it when I've recorded with other people. They've done it for me, where we've just done two vocal takes and panned one hard right and one hard left, and or just off, both of them off equidistant off center, and going from there.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really, really important point. So sometimes doubling.
I've kind of mimicked that without actually doing two different takes. So it's what I do is I run my vocal track through the pitch shifter in Logic, but I only shift the pitch by a few cents, so it's almost inaudible to the ear. And then shift the two ones, hard left and hard right, and put them slightly out of sync time-wise as well by fractions of a second, so it's barely audible, but it really thickens up the vocal sound and sort of spreads it across the panning.
Yeah, I love that. Great advice, thank you. There's so much to play with, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how phasing was done, I think, in the early days. Is they would take a track and they'd slow it down just a hair, put their hand on the reels or something like that. If I remember right, that's how phasing was done back before phasers were in style.
Yeah, it's that's where flanging comes from, because it's the flange on the reel that they would press on. Yeah,
not phasing, flanging.
Yeah,
that's it.
Phasing, I think, was to emulate a Leslie speaker.
Could be
the rotating Leslie speakers.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was the Univibe. Univibe, strictly speaking, is a phaser. That's the own thing. That's sounds close to the chorus, right? But yeah, there was definitely the guy that made it. Can't remember his exact name, but it was the firm was Chennai, and yeah, they were trying to get the Leslie thing, but they failed miserably. But they gave us that wonderful effect that's Univibe.
Right, guys. Well, we're at our hour mark, so unless there are any other questions or comments or thoughts.
Has anyone had experience with Waves? It is a pitch manager, and it can be auto-tune. My son gave it to me. I think he's suggesting, Dad, you go off pitch. It is fun. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. It's yeah.
I would also say sometimes, you know, our vocals have a bigger range than instruments, right? And actually, don't they say that piano is actually off, and your voice is more on point? So you know, like if there are parts where there are songs that are recorded from some of my favorite artists, and there are bits that are a bit off, and it's wonderful. It's so much better for having it there because you feel it. So I would always say, like, all of those all of the things that you can do with your vocals afterwards once they're in are great, but make sure whatever you do, make sure the heart is in it. If you don't feel it, no one else is going to feel it. That's the truth. Yeah,
makes sense.
All right, lovely people. Thank you. Thanks, you for your time and energy, and hope it was useful.
Thanks very much, pal. Thank you.
Always,
If,
always
um,
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
If
anyway,
you have any
that's 11
questions
o'clock.
during the EP challenge, or if you want me to, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing either, but if you want an ear, yell out, I'm here. If not, all the best. Much love to you all.
Bye.
All the
Take
best.
care, guys.
Well.
Bye bye.
See ya.